We got one going right now. Russell Gahagan here with Russell's Fishing Tech. We're on to class number 2 of my 2025 Salmon and Trout School Great Lakes style. First and foremost, I want to just start off by thanking everybody that reached out to me after the first salmon class, the one that we went on and talked about spring brown trout fishing. Tons of you reached out and said how much you enjoyed it, thank you for doing it, etc., etc. I really do appreciate that. Furthermore, make sure you smash the like button on this video. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Russell's Fishing Tech, if you haven't yet. And also share. Share and comment. Those are two things that really help me get views on this video. And really all we're trying to do here is help people catch more salmon and trout on the Great Lakes. So make sure you smash the like button. Comment down below, maybe some of your best baits for cohos. If you like the video, what videos you want to see coming up. I'm going to be doing a lot of videos coming up, not just the salmon schools, but some other videos for you. We're in full video mode now, which is really exciting. So appreciate all the support. Also, on a quick note, I had a lot of people reach out to me. I don't even know, dozens of people in the last couple of days since I released the brown trout video, asking how they could help to, cover some expenses, my time, loss of revenue on the salmon schools, whatever. I don't monetize my YouTube. A lot of people said, can I send a super chat or whatever? I do not monetize my YouTube. Honestly, I watch pretty much YouTube exclusively. I don't watch any regular TV anymore, really, other than a little bit of sports. And I hate the commercials. So I don't monetize my YouTube, unfortunately. But down below in the description, I am going to post a link to my PayPal. If you want to be gracious and send something, obviously I really, really appreciate that. Help cover costs, help cover my time, all that kind of stuff. If not, remember, this is meant to be free, and that's what I'm doing it for. I'm trying to help everybody catch more fish. So again, link will be down below in the PayPal. Now, on the coho fishing, we're going to talk early spring into early summer cohos. We're going to talk top locations. We're going to talk rod spread, and we're going to talk top baits for your early spring cohos. So we're talking basically starting right now. They're already catching cohos down on the southern end of Lake Michigan. They're catching cohos on Lake Superior already. So we're going to be talking tactics that you would use right now if you were going to go, probably through April, I would say. And then when we get into that May time frame, that's when we're going to start talking about more of the early summer tactics. For early spring cohos, top locations are actually very, very similar to the class that I just gave with the brown trout. Water temperature and water color are the main factors again. So the locations that we actually fish early spring cohos are going to be very similar to the locations we fish spring browns. Number one, you could look at a power plant discharge. So again, like Oak Creek here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin area, always holds some early season cohos. Down on the way southern end of the lake, the Gary Light has a warm water discharge near it there that pumps out. Guys catch a ton of cohos there. Anywhere where you're going to have warm water pumping into Lake Michigan again is going to be a great location. And a place to never leave out, harbor mouse. Even here in Sheboygan, we catch cohos every year in the spring / early summer right outside of our harbor. It's one of my dad's favorite places to fish. He limits out several times every year on cohos right in our dirty water right outside the harbor area. And again, for that same reason, when you have early spring fish and the water is ice cold on Lake Michigan. I was actually surprised when I was out brown trout fishing the other day. I saw 37-degree temperatures, which is actually okay for this time of year, not bad. But you're looking to see if you can find, a little pocket, a little bit warmer water. So we started in 35 and we found 37 degrees. That's kind of what you're looking for. You're looking for some water color, some color in the water, and you're looking for a little bit warmer temp. So harbor areas are going to be a great area. Then the other thing is, as I've mentioned a bunch of times, and I'm not going to get into detail right now, but my belief is coho salmon are really the only salmon and trout species that has a massive migration from south to north on Lake Michigan. In other words, I believe that most of the cohos winter down in the south end of Lake Michigan, and they migrate their way north as the spring and summer goes along. What that means is you're going to find pockets and schools of cohos up and down the shoreline, come late May, all the way from the southern bottom of Lake Michigan, all the way up to maybe like Sheboygan, Wisconsin, on our side of the lake here. So there's going to be pockets all along the shoreline. So shoreline fishing, and particularly real early spring like this, can be really good. In my experience, there really isn't like a rhyme or reason that they're in this 2 mile stretch or not that 2 mile stretch, other than water color and water temperature. If you find a pocket of water that's got some color and got some temp, it almost always has cohos in it. That's really a big key. So keep that in mind. I tried to use another picture on the PowerPoint there, if you look, that would show you what I mean. That picture is from like 5 years ago. Myself, Lily, and my buddy Matt took his skeeter down right about this time of year down to Portage, Indiana. And you can see in the background, that's a shoreline coho caught by Lily on a slide diver, if I remember right, on an Orange Jeans gold mini spoon. But you can see in the background, if you look behind her back there again, you see some nice color in the water. That's not crystal blue water. There's some nice green color in that water. We found a pocket of water. It would have been in between Gary and Portage, where we found a nice pocket of water there that had some color in it. It was a couple degrees warmer, and we ended up catching quite a few fish in that area. So tried to use a really good picture there to help describe and explain that scenario. Rod spread. Rod spread also for spring cohos is very similar to brown trout, and it's why a lot of the walleye guys, crossover guys, who maybe aren't ready to do spring walleye fishing or don't get into the spring walleye run, really like the spring browns and spring coho fishing. You don't need heavy equipment. You can get away with walleye type rods or lighter trolling type tackle. Again, we're going to use inline sinkers or snap weights on our 4 to 6 planer boards to help get us down into the water column. And we're going to use, I like the mini slide divers again, the 00, the small one, because I didn't mention the slide before, but it was on there, I believe. I'm primarily in the early spring like this, we're going to be fishing like 10 to 30 feet of water. So very shallow, very skinny. So we don't need a lot of heavy equipment. Inline sinkers, 1/4 ounce to 1/2 ounce inline sinkers primarily, or snap weights. And then the smaller mini slide diver again, just so we can get some stealth and get it away from the boat. One of the big advantages with cohos is stealth is not as big a deal. And what I mean by that is you don't need to worry about them being as spooky. Unlike a lot of the other trout and salmon species, they're very aggressive. So even if we're in that 15, 20 foot of water, we actually do have some success a lot of times with downriggers for cohos. And we, like I said, we don't have to worry so much about being super stealthy. But if you are in that like 10, 15 foot of water, they will be spooky to you. You do have to be a little cautious and try to get your stuff away from the boat. So we are using primarily the same stuff. Again, with your trolling rod or your planer board rods, I prefer braid, but you can get away with mono. You're going to again use that rod length leader. I didn't get the rods out because it's the same thing as we just talked about. Going to use that rod length leader from your inline swivel or your inline sinker to the bait. Or if you're going to do a snap weight, like an 8 or 10 foot lead is just fine. You could use short lead cores. There are guys that do. But again, I wouldn't recommend really rigging up anything less than maybe like a 2 color, because you're probably just not going to use that a lot other places, a 1 color, a 1/2 a color, things like that. So in this particular case, most of the people that are fishing spring cohos regularly are using inline sinkers or snap weights. That's kind of the go-to deal there. As far as top baits go for spring coho fishing, it is very different than early summer coho fishing. I remember a story, I'll tell you real quick, back 3-4 years ago, something like that. A buddy of mine who was helping me do sport shows and stuff at the time, he went down and fished a small little tournament out of Portage, Indiana. like maybe like mid-March or something, I want to say. He was from Sheboygan, charter captain, and he forgot to bring his crankbait box along. And he went down there with spoons and dodgers and all that kind of stuff. And needless to say, he got his butt kicked. Everybody in the entire tournament, I think, pretty much caught their limit and caught him in fairly short order. And I think he only caught a couple of fish. And the reason was he could only find, I believe, like one flicker shad in his boat, and he caught a couple of fish on that. Crankbaits for early season cohos tend to be some of the best baits there are. Again, like I talked about brown trout fishing, I'm not a giant fan of them because of the hook to catch ratio, but cohos are very aggressive. And the main difference there is, keep this in mind, the salmon and trout have very different mouths. Trout have a very soft mouth. Rainbow trout, brown trout, lake trout, they have a very soft mouth, almost more like a walleye, like a paper mouth, I call it. They can tear, the hooks can tear out of them very easily. Salmon, on the other hand, have a hard mouth. King salmon, coho salmon, their mouths, their jaws are very hard. So when you get hooks into them, you do have a better chance, in my opinion, of catching kings and cohos on crankbaits than you do trout. So spring cohos, they are very crankbait oriented. Number one crankbait to use is a crankbait called a thin fin. Doc's Custom makes a bunch of thin fins. This is what a thin fin looks like. I want to make sure I get in the right area here. This is what a thin fin looks like. One of the reasons I think the thin fin is so productive is not only does it have a very shallow bill, because we're going to fish that real shallow water, but also, as you can probably hear, it's got a very, very loud rattle. This is one of my favorite color thin fins from Doc's. That is a steely candy. That's one of my favorite colors. Bright, bright orange. We all know cohos love orange. But Doc's Custom Crankbaits makes awesome thin fins. And they are one of the premier early season lures. Some of my favorite colors from Doc's in those early season thin fins are on the screen here on the PowerPoint. Steely Candy, Orange Easter Egg, Fire Dots, Winx UV, Reverse Coho Killer. Now, I do want to mention, since we're talking about Doc's, he does have different colored bodies. So depending on the water clarity and the sunlight, if it's high sun, low sun kind of day or cloud cover kind of day, you've got your gaudy orange, like the Steely Candy. Here's a Rasta Goose, which is one of my favorites. That's on a gold. So you got, more of a gold blank here for kind of a high sun situation, maybe dirty water, high sun. Here's a maybe cleaner water, high sun situation. That's a pink lemonade on silver. Great color on a chrome blank. And then he also has some copper. And in real dirty water, cohos seem to love copper. Copper Confusion is a great color. So do keep in mind that he does have some different blank options there. The other thing I've had a lot of success with for early season spring cohos is just our standard Salmon Candy mini spoons. And really what's interesting is in a lot of the same patterns that we're using for brown trout. So, colors like Winx UV, Coho Crusher, Orange Jeans, Steely Candy, Wonder Wolverine. And then early in the season like this, again, because we have all this runoff coming from the rivers, the shoreline usually has a lot of color, like that last picture that I showed of Lily behind her back. So our new glow patterns might even do really, really well. Like Wonder Bread Glow, which we caught a fish on the other day, a brown trout, when we were out and had some color in the water. Booger Nose, Orange Goby. Those are all patterns that I can see having great success for very early season cohos. So remember, early season cohos, we're looking for colored water, we're looking for a little bit warmer water, and we're going to use loud baits, whether it be loud in color or loud in action, like the thin fin, and loud in rattles. So that kind of covers that early season coho fishing. I can't wait to get out and do it. I'm going to try to get out here in the next couple of weeks and maybe get down south and maybe get some filming done for you or whatever. But it is some of the fastest, most fun, furious action you can get. Now, let's talk about the next section. How about early summer cohos? It's transition time. Now, this is a very tricky topic to talk about because every year is a little bit different and it's hard to predict how the cohos are going to transition. Over the course of my 30 years fishing Lake Michigan, I mean more than that, but that I can remember and talk about, um, you know, intelligently, I guess, since I've been about 12 years old charter fishing, so about 30 years. You know, there's been years that the cohos never made it to the Sheboygan. There's been years that when they got to Sheboygan, they were out 180 to 250 foot of water. There's been years that we caught them right outside the pier heads. Last year, I was working a pocket of water south of Sheboygan in 40 foot for 2 weeks and caught my limit every single time I went there. It was an absolute blast. So, you know, they can be in 20, they can be in 40, they can be in 80, they can be in 120, 200, 300. It's very difficult. And really what it boils down to is it's all weather dependent. I think I even put that right here. Yeah, weather dependent. So if we get a real warm spring, the water warms up real early and cleans up real fast. That's a really important part. That shoreline water cleans up fast. It is likely that them fish are going to just work their way up the shoreline and out into the lake. If we get some nice weather early in the spring, they start working their way north, and then it kind of hovers. You know, we get what I call that hover weather, where it hovers around that 50-degree mark, you know, for quite a while in the spring. And we keep a lot of that color. We get some rain, and we get some runoff, and, you know, we get rivers continuously dumping into the lake. And it keeps that color around in that 30, 40, 50 foot of water, like we had last year. That is when we can have May into early June fantastic coho fishing in like 60 foot and less. So how we approach and attack them is really going to be a little bit variant on where they are, you know, what depth of water they are that we're fishing. The good part is we're generally not fishing for them in May and June any further down than about 30 feet down. It's about the maximum we're fishing them. So even if we're out in 250 foot of water, we're still primarily covering that top 30 feet of the water column. So we're really fishing them with the same gear and the same types of tackle now that we're going to get into here for early summer coho fishing. We're really fishing them with the same types of stuff. It's just more now of is if it's going to be 40 foot of water or it's going to be 200 foot of water. Early summer, it says early spring, I apologize. I should say early summer coho rod spread. So the only difference from the spring setup now is that lead core will now start to become part of the game and riggers become a little bit more part of the game. Because instead of focusing in that 10 to 30 foot of water, we're now going to be fishing probably, like I said, 30 to 200. And we are going to start to catch a lot of cohos down 20, 25, 30 feet. They're going to become, you know, that's going to become the primary depth that we're going to start catching a lot of these cohos. So 3-color lead cores, 5-color lead cores, riggers down 21, 25, 27, 31. Those are all going to be good. And then you could continue to use the mini slide divers if you wanted, or generally speaking now, I start switching over to the main, you know, size 0, the standard size slide diver, or size 1, I'm not sure what it's called to be honest with you, but the standard size slide diver. We still use a lot of inline weights this time of year. You can use lead core or you can use inline weights. A lot of guys will use a 1/2 ounce or a 1 ounce inline weight. So all their setups are basically the same and you can kind of duplicate it easier. That's more of my preference, but some guys will use a variance of like 2-color, 3-color, 5-color lead core. Again, that's sort of personal preference. As far as early summer coho baits go, this is when we transition into the Dodger Fly program. And Dodger Flies are pretty much the staple when it comes to coho fishing. If you travel all the way down to the southern end of Lake Michigan, down by Portage, Chicago, Waukegan, Winthrop, and you go down there in May and June, you're going to walk by charter boats that are going to have 20 of something that looks similar to this hanging on their rods. This is a double O Dodger by Salmon Candy. A lot of them are just going to run the plain orange or plain fire red by Lure Jensen that's been around for a long time. But this standard double O size, actually the right way to hold it, the standard 00 size is the most popular. I start the season off, the early summer season off, with the 00 Dodgers. I primarily run these, and then I'll mix a few of our double wide Dodgers in. That would be in like early to mid-May. As we get into mid-May, into late May, I'm going to start to transition into more of the double wide than the 00s. That's going to be that transition period of time. And really for me, it's a depth thing. If I'm fishing that top 10, 15 foot of water, I like the 00s more. If I'm fishing more of that like 15 to 30 down, I like the double wides more. I also really prefer the double wides on downriggers and divers. I do fish them a little bit on boards, but I actually like these better on like downriggers and divers. That's where they seem to really excel for me. And then the 00s more on the boards. Last year, something new came along. And at Doc's Custom Crankbaits, he started making a new mini flasher. This is like a 5.5 inch flasher or something. As I said, it's called like a mini flasher, I guess is what he calls it. And we had a ton of success with this. I primarily did well on this on divers, so like on slide divers. I didn't fish it much on anything else. I guess I did run it occasionally on a 5-color with some success, but it definitely seemed to be a bait that needed to be down deeper in the water column, like 20, 25, 30 down. I will say this, it was hit or miss for me, but when it was hit, these mini flashers were my best rod. No doubt about it. There was a couple of days in particular, I can think of one where I was fishing with my buddy Matt Clinton. I think we were out of Port Washington, and we were fishing quite a ways south of Port, and we were doing an outing. I want to say it was a, and I apologize if I'm wrong on this, but I want to say it was like a military outing or something that a gentleman put on down there. You know, it was to take out people fishing. You donated your day and your time to take people out fishing, and we had a great day. We had a family on board. It was a lot of fun, but I remember we caught like 8 or 9 cohos, something like that, give or take a little bit. We lost a pile. We had enough to catch our 20-25 on the rods. Just had one of those losing days, unfortunately. But I remember particularly, we had just picked up a couple of these from Doc's Custom the day before, and they were by far our best baits. We were getting 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 bites on the mini flashers that particular day compared to the 00 Dodgers or the double wides. Then there were other days where it was all double wides or all 00s. So you do want to keep a variety of them out and zero in on that, but make sure you're getting yourself a few of these mini flashers if you don't have them. Let's talk a little bit about flies. I've talked a lot about this in the past, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but because it is a big factor for cohos, we're going to talk about it. As far as the flies go, it's kind of like the Dodgers. I like the peanuts, which are your smaller, like 2-inch version, early in the season. So like right out of the gate, late April, early May, I'm fishing exclusively peanuts. And I'll fish peanuts all the way into like mid to late May. And then I will start to mix in slider flies, you know, which is a much bigger profile. I almost don't ever go to all slider flies. I'll always have some peanuts out when I'm coho targeting in particularly. But as the cohos progress through the season and even get into the regular part of the summer, we start catching them on our 8-inch king flashers with 4-inch flies regularly. So you will find that as they're getting a little bit bigger and they're progressing throughout the season from the early spring into the early summer and into summer, you know, you will see plenty of days where the peanuts maybe aren't the best and maybe sliders, you know, outfish the peanuts. But early spring or early summer, late spring, like late April, early May, it's all peanut flies for me. And then I'll start to transition into some more of the slider flies. Now I get a lot of questions. How far behind the Dodgers and the flashers or whatever are you running your peanut flies or slider flies? Here's my deal. I like 15 inches on the 00s, and I like 18 inches on the double wide and on the mini flasher. So 15 inches on the 00, 18 inches on the double wides and the mini flashers. I've got some of my favorite colors up here again. In the Doc's Custom mini flashers, I like Steely Candy, Orange Jeans, Red Devil, Inmate, Reverse Coho Crusher, in the Salmon Candy double O's and double wides. You know, again, a lot of the patterns will work. These are just some of the ones that I like the best. You know, Steely Candy, Winx UV, Gold Inmate UV, Gold Orange Jeans, Winx UV, and Reverse Coho Killer. That's one last thing I do want to touch on is that, you know, when you're choosing colors, again, take a look at watercolor. So even in that early summer, if you're fishing in that 40 foot of water or 50 foot of water and there's a lot of color in the water, you're probably going to see the super gaudy stuff, the bright oranges, you know, the gaudy reds really be the best, most effective baits or dodgers or flashes. You get out into the cleaner water, out in that 70, 80, 100, 120. Now, you know, light penetration and just preference by the Coho will take over. The gold flashers, like this gold orange jeans, might be better. This is Malpal and copper. You know, copper might be preferred. Some days, high sun, maybe they just want a plain chrome, like this orange Easter egg. So make sure that you got a little bit of a variety, and you can put that out there and see what they want for that particular day. Last but not least, I just want to make a couple quick notes so you guys have it. A couple people missed out on the last one. Looks like I goofed up there, but that's okay. Take note there. Starting right now on the Salmon Candy website, I will offer you guys a 10% off coupon. It's going to be Coho10 is the code, which it says right there on the PowerPoint. Doc's Custom Crankbaits also going to have a code Coho10, and then as I said before, the link for my PayPal is down in the description. So hope you guys enjoyed what looks like it is about a 30-minute video. That's what we're trying to get at here for spring, early spring into early summer Cohos. We will be back in a couple of days with another video. The next one we're going to touch on, you'll have to wait and see. Thank you.